Hey there, fellas. So right here next to me you can see this lovely vehicle, and it's been here for a while. We didn't really know what to do with it, but recently an idea occurred to us. You'd recall how we buried a few cars a while back? We left one in a lake over the winter underneath some ice. That one got severely crushed. Anyways, so we got this car, the weather is nice, and where does the connection lie? Well, the idea is to set up a pool in the same spot where we had one before. We got a nice space for it. We fill that with water, and we'll try to imitate, we're not going to be able to duplicate ocean water, but we'll add some regular old salt, make salt water and load this into it, and then see what happens to it after a month, how corroded it's going to get, and overall how the car is going to be feeling by then. We're gonna go ahead and extract it, have a good look, and we might even try to start it. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's set up that pool, put some salt into the water, place the car inside, wait a month, and see what happens. Let's do this. 1 month submerged in salt water, what will happen to a car? Translation and voiceover by BMI Russian. Okay, fire it up. The engine runs, and that's enough. It's making all sorts of weird noises. That's because we've dropped the oil. What matters is the engine is able to start, and the car is now ready for the plunge. And in order to make the water about as salty as in a sea or an ocean, we've worked out that we'll need half a ton of salt. Now let's get everything prepared, grab the car, submerge it. Yeah, let's go. There we go. I do think it'll spread, even if it does take a while. This'll take over an hour, but we're not in any hurry. We'll just allow it to slowly dissolve in there. Okay, what do we got? No, it ain't salty. Go get a couple of more sacks. After 5 weeks. Okay, so the time has come, though honestly we totally forgot about it. It spent more time in there than initially intended. It wasn't a month or 4 weeks, it was closer to 5. But no big deal. Now from the looks of it, nothing horrible has even happened to the car. Well, I mean to say, there don't seem to be any critical changes. I really don't see the difference between it sitting in salt water or in fresh water. I guess because this is water, active corrosion is going to require oxygen. And without oxygen, you won't really see any corrosion occurring. But I do see some kind of weird buildup on the panels. It actually looks a bit like moss. What's interesting is that when you look at the lower section, the water is murky right up to the center line of the wheel. It's like a separate layer, and it all looks rather curious. Interesting. Now, we tried it, and the water is salty, so that hasn't sunken. The water is evenly salty, and now the time has come to extract the car. So while we were hooking it up, I noticed that the tire studs are very rusty. The mounting on the seats Plus somebody fitted metal inserts to the dash, so any bare metal surfaces are now severely rusty. And check this out. The chrome reflectors inside the headlights are also rusty. So is the bumper mounting point, and even the plastic horn has got some sort of white buildup on it. I mean, seriously, what the hell is that? Alright, check out what we got here. I don't really understand what this is. Some kind of moss-like substance? Who knows? We got salt on the seat cover. Yeah, that is quite a lot of salt. It would have been soaked up, and since it wouldn't evaporate, it stayed on there. The wheels, rusty. Rocker panels, rusty. As for the trunk, what's good in here is that the filth has been thoroughly dissolved. This comes off super easy, and if we were to give this a clean, this would be spick and span. Okay, what else do we got? The aluminum bits are also heavily corroded. Look at that salt. The aluminum has become darker, so it is quite prone to corrosion. There was a bit of rebar lying in the back. And just look at it, it is super rusty. Yeah, even though there wasn't much oxygen, the salt has done some work. Lots of rust. Holy cow, look at those studs. Yeah, these are severely corroded. And it's a thick layer of rust too. Must be some kind of high-carbon steel that is very susceptible to corrosion. Right, now let's take a look at the engine bay. Okay, let's see what's happening under the hood. Oh yeah, this is looking very good. The whole engine is covered in residue. But what's really interesting is that all of these sort of cylium bits, such as the valve cover, the distributor cap, the alternator, is also covered in something, but then parts such as the carburetor and the fuel pump, which are made of zinc-rich alloy, are covered in God knows what that is. Some sort of oxide, which is white and forms a thick layer. So I have pulled a fuse out, and look at that. The fuses seem to be in okay condition even. That can't be a bad thing. Let's see how bad the connectors look. The rubber seal did a good job. The inside's dry. And that is very nice indeed. Whoever made these did a great job. Not bad. Now what about... Yeah, a bit of salt water did make it inside. But all of the contacts seem to be in decent shape even. What about this one? It is corroded. But then this wasn't properly sealed, so... Okay, let's bring it in, clean it out, and attempt to start the engine. And in the process, we'll find out what sort of condition the wiring is in. Is it in working condition? Or has it run its course? Okay, roll it in, wash everything, and take a crack at starting the thing. Why aren't you in the driver's seat if we need the brakes? Work the wheel, come on. the contact seems to have rusted out. So at first we thought that we were suffering serious losses, but if the starter motor refused to work initially, now after giving it a quick clean, try it out. It should do its thing. The solenoid works, and so does the motor. So the starter can be salvaged, but some parts we did lose, such as the fuel pump. And we don't quite understand what's wrong with it. It looked all right on the inside, but the lever has rusted away and fallen off. So we're going to have to replace it, yeah. And the problems don't end there. For example, the electronics are in very rough shape. I mean, pretty much none of the electrical components work. The coil has left the chat, as has the switchboard. So those we had to replace. And what's really unpleasant is that, well, the distributor is not from this car. We tried to connect it, and things seem to be at least, like, somewhat functional. As you can probably tell, we even have spark. So yeah, we got spark, and that's a pretty important thing to have. Oh, that was inside the switch? There was a little bit. Not a lot has made it in. Not much at all. But isn't this supposed to be hermetically sealed? Not necessarily. There was, holy moly, water in there. But then we do have spark, so I'm gonna need some gasoline. Let's try starting it. Okay, let her rip. That's enough. So apparently, wow, we seem to be experiencing some serious issues with the electronics. We have unstable spark. The plugs are getting flooded, sometimes they're not. Excellent. Try again. Okay guys, so this is shaping out to be pretty interesting. We had to do quite a bit of work actually, but we were able to find spark, which we now have. We've also boosted the compression by adding a bit of oil into each cylinder. So overall, we're looking pretty good. Oh yeah, and here's another interesting thing. We of course hooked up a throttle cable to give us control from the cabin, but when we tried fitting the spring, turned out the upper section of the carburetor is falling to pieces. Seems a bit suspicious, but that being said, we are going to have to replace the carburetor. We simply don't have any other options. The engine is coughing and sputtering, well, it did a few times. But our objective is to make this work properly, so yeah. We are going to fit a carburetor that actually works, and from there we'll try. I mean, we just have to get this up and running. Okay, let's carry on then. Look at that, you literally got pieces coming off. Yeah, this carby is done. Okay, let's give this a try. Why doesn't it want to fire up? It just refuses to altogether. That's enough. If it's gonna be that way, we gotta change our strategy. Yell when it starts. Okay, what do we got? Are you at least trying?
It won't give me a gear.
It won't go into gear again?
Yeah, I got nothing.
What's up?
It seems to be trying to start, but isn't quite getting there.
I can hear something happening. It is trying to start. I don't get it either.
It didn't want to start in second at all. In first, it actually did a couple of times, but with it being a manual, I had to brake and simultaneously hold the gas to prevent it from stalling, which I wasn't able to do at once. I was afraid of hitting you, and while I was braking, it stalled. Let's slowly head back and I'll try first again.
It works! Do you guys hear it? Nice! I do hear a burble, but that's because there's no muffler. Hey, what happened? The engine did run for a bit, any remaining water evacuated. Oil has begun to circulate, it's all good. Go for it. It runs. Great. We have revived this engine, and that is very nice. Switch it off. And since we've gotten the engine to work, now that it runs, we're removing... It's just that we're a bit curious. And so we're gonna remove the functional carburetor we got on there and replace it with... Just look at it, it's dry and brittle, but we're gonna attempt to put it back on there. That is awful. And we'll try starting the car. So check this out, we've removed the gauge cluster, and the pins seem to be in relatively good shape. No evidence of oxidation, even though these don't look like they were sealed tight. Don't see any rubber seals. The bulbs, yeah, they are a bit corroded, but they don't look too bad. I was expecting this to be way worse, actually. In reality, this ain't too bad. I'm gonna assemble it and put it back into place. Okay, the carburetor is in place. Is everything good here? Yep, we're good. Well, let's try this out then. What's there to even say? Q quality. Very nice indeed. The carburetor is severely corroded after sitting in salt water for 5 weeks, yet the car still starts. That is a very nice thing. Now let's fire it up and go outside. Check this out, guys. This was a pretty curious one indeed. Here's the deal. The body panels that were covered in paint, those, well, they obviously were preserved in decent condition, so nothing horrible has happened to them. But wherever we had bare metal, those parts were severely corroded. But then, I mean, salt will do that to you. And then there were parts such as the fuel pump, which were a total loss. And the carburetor, which did work, but it was literally disintegrating. So yeah, the salt was ruthless. It corroded the carburetor to the point where it began to crumble. I mean, holy cow. But in any case, it still works, so... The block itself, the aluminum covers, all of that was also oxidized. So we were able to clean all of it off with a pressure washer and no soap even. But the thing that sustained the most punishment from the salt, from the ocean water that we made, was most definitely the electronics. The wiring, relays, the plugs didn't seem to look all that bad, but the relays didn't work. The fuses didn't look too rusty when we were pulling them out, but then everything seemed to be short-circuited. The ignition switch, we drowned the thing in silicone lubricant, and were even able to get it to turn. And it was working at first, but even if the contacts were doing something and powering up the electrical system, after a couple of cycles, everything just sort of crapped out. None of it was working anymore. And so I removed the gauge cluster to have a look. And the contacts weren't even looking all that bad. They were dark, but there was still copper and everything should have been functional, but in reality, crucially, the connectors were clean, which was a bit of a surprise. They were clean, they looked fine. As if the salt didn't even make it inside. But apparently it got inside a bunch of other connections, and overall the electronics were a massive headache. I still don't get why the coil failed. The switch was supposed to be sealed off, but it contained half a glass of water. It was a nightmare. But we replaced all of that and got the engine to work, which was pretty nice. It would seem as if the mechanical components don't take quite as bad a beating as the electronics. Yeah, you're better off avoiding these types of scenarios. Don't buy a car with water damage, because it's just gonna be one massive problem. And that's all I got for you. Watch us, subscribe, send in your suggestions, comment, give us a big thumbs up. Alright, catch you later.